The Santa Anita Derby. California's best 3-year-olds. The nation's top jockeys. 8 times the winner of this race has gone on to win the Kentucky Derby. They've been tested all winter. Today, one horse will emerge as the best of the West.
I'm Chris McCarron. I've been riding for 24 years. In today's Santa Anita Derby, I'll be riding Artax. Artax is a very talented, tenacious fighter. At top speed, these horses will be traveling 40 miles an hour.
In this game, strategy is everything. It's the difference between winning or losing. I'm Kent DeSormo, and I ride real quiet. He needs to leave the gate like a quarter horse, settle in like a thoroughbred, and explode like a rocket.
Today I'm riding Orville and Wilbur's. I'm Corey Nakatani, Orville and Wilbur. Now that's a good-looking horse.
I'm Gary Stevens. Last year I rode Silver Charm to a Kentucky Derby victory. Today I ride Indian Charlie. The greatest thing about Indian Charlie, why I enjoy riding him so much, he's got more natural ability than any horse that I've ever sat on.
It's the Santa Anita Derby, next on Fox.
It's the Sport of Kings on Fox, and welcome to historic Santa Anita Park at the foot of the San Gabriel Mountains in Arcadia, California, as we get ready for the running of the 61st Santa Anita Derby. They've been racing thoroughbreds here since 1934, and today this field will be put together in the last tune-up for the West Coast before the Kentucky Derby. A look at today's weather, definitely a factor, 60 degrees, light rain at the moment, with the track condition fast. And hello, everybody, and welcome to Santa Anita Park. So happy to have you with us for our first horse race here on Fox. This is a race of 1 1/8 miles, and even little El Nino can't slow down this track. It is fast, as are the horses in this field. Let's let you meet the field. We start at the rail, and we start with Indian Charlie, ridden by Gary Stevens. The morning line, 5-2. Check out Orville and Wilbur's, ridden by Corey Nakatani. He's at 7-2. We go further along the line. Classic Cat, ridden by Frank Alvarado. Eddie Delahousse was taken ill, has been taken off his mounts for the rest of the afternoon. Artax is the early morning favorite, ridden by Chris McCarron. So we are excited to bring you this Santa Anita Derby, and I'm excited to bring in my partner for this Santa Anita Derby, Ron Ellis, one of the top trainers out here on the West Coast. We mentioned the weather, definitely a factor. It's been raining on and off all week, on and off all day. Will that affect this race at all?
Joe, as of right now, it wouldn't affect the track at all. It's in great shape. In fact, it's so fast, they set a new track record here earlier in the races. It just won't be a factor.
Well, meanwhile, you've got these 3-year-olds racing, and for all of them, racing 1 1/8 miles for the first time. Is the change in distance going to be a problem for any one of these horses?
Well, it could be a problem, but I think if a lot of these speed horses will relax for their jockeys right out of the gate, then I think they're not going to have any problem getting the distance. Should they set a very fast pace in here, a lot of these horses are going to be looking for oxygen that last 1/8 of a mile.
Well, in case you're wondering what the correlation is between the Santa Anita Derby and the Kentucky Derby, we give you a list of 8 previous winners here at Santa Anita who have gone on to win at the Kentucky Derby. We highlight 1978. Why not Jay Privman? That is the last Triple Crown winner affirmed in 1978. This guy right here is the New York Times correspondent for horse racing out here, Jay Privman. And Jay, this is a field of 7, but probably more a Final Four type, and any one of the top 4 horses could win this.
It really is a terrific field. 4 horses in here trying to follow in the footsteps of the 8 we just looked at, who have won both the Santa Anita Derby and the Kentucky Derby. But a lot of questions to be answered today. First of all, can Indian Charlie, with just 3 previous starts, step up to this level and beat the horses who have been the best in the West all winter? Can the front-running Orville and Wilbur's carry his speed 1 1/8 miles? He won going 1 mile last time. Today he's running 220 yards farther. And who will win round 3 in the budding rivalry between Artax and Real Quiet? They've split their 2 previous decisions.
Well, you've met 3 of us. There's one more. Standing by with Chris McCarron down in the paddock is the 4th member of our broadcast team, Susie Colbert. Let's go down to her.
Thanks, Joe, with Hall of Fame jockey Chris McCarron. And our guys are talking about a possible rivalry developing between Real Quiet and Artax. obviously you have more of a concern than just Real Quiet. How will you attack this field?
Well, I have a lot more concern than just Real Quiet, that's for sure, because Indian Charlie can really run, and so can Overland Wilbur. So it's going to be an interesting race the way it sets up. I think that Wally Delassie, who trains Overland Wilburs, has been saying all week that he's going to instruct Corey just to let his horse go to the lead. But the interesting part's going to come where the rest of us position ourselves. If Artax is cooperative, I think I'll try to get him to just lay off of Overland Wilburs as we go around the first turn. And Indian Charlie's going to be in the same position down on the inside. Real Quiet's probably going to be in the garden spot stalking all three of us, so it should be fun the way it sets up.
Have a safe ride.
Thank you.
Chris McCarron going for his third Santa Anita Derby win. Joe?
Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Chris. Now, folks, a look at all that's in store for you from Santa Anita here on Fox.
Coming up, we'll take an inside look at one of today's favorites, Artex, as his handlers look to prove why he's dubbed the best of the West. Then, we'll give you an in-depth look at one of horse racing's most flamboyant trainers, Bob Baffert. And finally, saddle up and stick around for the 61st Santa Anita Derby.
Folks at home today, you can log on to our website at www.foxsports.com to vote for the winner of the Santa Anita Derby. We'll post the results on air prior to the race. We welcome you back to Santa Anita Park. Joe Buck and Jay Privman. And Jay, let's drop a little Final Four speak on them. While we prepare here, and this is the final prep race for these horses in Southern California, there are many other regionals going on across the country.
That's right, and in those regionals, 5 horses have emerged as top contenders for the Kentucky Derby. Today here at Santa Anita, we're going to find out who's the best in the West, but these are the best of the rest.
And Lil's Lad is called on for everything. Event of the year.
Lil's Lad ran the best race of his life in the Florida Derby. He set a blazing early pace, was challenged repeatedly, and still was in front at the wire. But hip checks aren't allowed in horse racing.
It was disappointing, but we were disappointed in the disqualification, but not disappointed in him. I mean, the horse showed me something that I really haven't seen too many horses do.
Lil's Lad's best weapon is his speed, but now that the distances of the races he competes in are getting longer, that speed could prove his undoing if he goes too fast too soon. Cape Town was placed first in the Florida Derby when Lil's Lad was disqualified. He's an inconsistent horse, alternating brilliant efforts with sleepwalks. But his trainer, Dwayne Lucas, knows what it takes to win the Kentucky Derby. He's done it 3 times. The most exciting newcomer to the Derby scene is the undefeated event of the year. He's a son of Triple Crown winner Seattle Slew, and he's now a perfect 4 for 4 following this overpowering victory in last week's Jim Beam Stakes.
I think he has the potential to be a superstar. I'm sure after the Jim Beam, I think he's ready now to face the best in the country.
He'll get that chance in the Kentucky Derby, but he's yet to face horses of the caliber of Lil's Lad or Artax, and he'll have an unusual 5-week break between the Jim Beam and the Derby. If Lil's Lad can't carry his speed 1.25 miles, trainer Neil Howard will have to rely on his tag team partner, the stretch-running Comic Strip, who came flying down the center of the track to win the Louisiana Derby.
So he's a different type horse. No speed, likes to kind of settle back a little bit early on. He's got a real good stretch kick that seems like it's improved with each race this season.
The one they all have to beat is the once-and-future king, the unbeaten Favorite Trick. But Favorite Trick is playing catch-up. Last year's Horse of the Year has a new trainer. He didn't make his first start of the year until 3 weeks ago, and he'll only have one more prep race before the Kentucky Derby, next week's Arkansas Derby.
I think it would be a good measuring stick, and yet it may not be the absolute toughest race for us to win.
Favorite Trick has won all 9 of his starts, but only one horse in the past 50 years has won the Kentucky Derby with just 2 prep races at age 3.
If everything goes smoothly, we can be fit enough to run in in the Derby and run on Derby Day, but we can't have anything go wrong at this point.
Mott has been training for 25 years, but he's had just one starter in the Kentucky Derby, and that was 14 years ago. He says he's not afraid of running in the race, and he realizes that expectations are high when training the early Derby favorite.
If he didn't do well, or he didn't make it to any of the Triple Crown races, in particular the Kentucky Derby, I'd really get hammered and say something to the effect that I don't want to run in the Derby, which is absolutely preposterous. We want to make it there. We want to win the Derby.
Before Favorite Trick, the last 2-year-old to be named Horse of the Year was Secretariat. He won the 1973 Triple Crown, and he's the ghost that Favorite Trick is chasing.
Well, chasing the ghost of Secretariat, Jay Privman, not an easy task considering all that's gone on in the past year for Favorite Trick. I'll ask you, is Favorite Trick a favorite of yours for the Kentucky Derby? Or better yet, do you think Favorite Trick will even run in the Kentucky Derby?
Well, I think he's going to run in the Kentucky Derby. He's got one more prep race. That's next week's Arkansas Derby. And, Joe, that race is coming up so soft, he's not going to be able to help himself from winning against that field. He will go to the Kentucky Derby unbeaten, 10 for 10 lifetime.
Well, if that's the case then, Ron Ellis, 10 for 10, you have to start asking the question, how special is this horse?
Well, he's a fabulous horse. I mean, there's not many horses that can do what he did. To be voted 2-year-old of the year is fabulous. But come on, guys. It's a Kentucky Derby, 1.25 miles. He doesn't have the pedigree off just 2 preps. That's extremely hard to do. I would say if anybody could do it, it could be Billy Mott.
Well, in fact, it's so hard to do, it's only happened once in the last 50 years. Talking about a horse with only 2 prep races going on to win the Kentucky Derby, and you look at Sonny's Halo, doing it 15 years ago in 1983. So that's the story with Favorite Trick, and we turn our attentions back to this race, and we look at the odds and how the odds have changed. Early money, a lot of early money on Indian Charlie, ridden by Gary Stevens, and you will see as we scroll down through, Orville and Wilbur's is a second choice, and Artax has slipped to 7-2, ridden by Chris McCarron. But when we talk about Artax, we talk about a great horse, and coming in, he's known out here, Ron Ellis, as the best of the West.
Well, I would say that he is and deserved to be the favorite coming in. We talked to the team behind Artax this week, and he's a gifted horse with confident connections.
I saw this colt in the stall, and I said, whoa, is he an eye catcher? He's handsome. He's just beautiful.
He's really gotten to where he thinks he can probably beat anybody.
Artax digs deep and finds more. Artax is running a superb one.
After overcoming knee surgery and some inexperience as a juvenile, Artax has won his last 2 stakes races to become one of the country's top 3-year-olds.
He's really matured the last couple of races, especially since the Santa Catalina, which I think was a turning point in his career.
He showed a lot of grit. He had to shake off a couple of runs that horses made at him around the first turn and down the backside, and he still went off and won by 5.
Artax, super impressive under Chris McCarron, romps in the Santa Catalina.
Mentally, he's gotten a lot tougher. I don't think that a horse can get by him unless he's really that much better horse. And I've been around a lot of good horses, Ron. This is probably one of the best I've been around.
Randy Bradshaw should know a lot about quality horses. He honed his craft under D. Wayne Lucas for 8 years before going out on his own. Now he's on the cusp of taking his first horse to the Kentucky Derby.
One thing about working with Wayne, you get the exposure, and I think that's helped. There's a lot of guys who can train horses that never get a chance because they don't get the exposure.
Exposure is the last thing Artax's owner, Ernie Paragallo, wants, especially with what happened in the 1996 Kentucky Derby with his pre-race favorite, Unbridled Song.
I made a prediction about him when I first had sold him as a 2-year-old that I thought he'd win the Breeders' Cup and the Triple Crown at that point in time. And after he won the Breeders' Cup, I was foolish enough to say it again, and the press got a hold of that, and they harped on that for the rest of the year. When we got to Kentucky, we had a couple of problems at that point in time with his health, his feet, and he ran his heart out in the race, though he wasn't lucky enough to perform at his peak that particular day.
And what did Paragallo take from that experience?
I learned to keep my mouth shut.
But with a horse this good, it's hard to bite your tongue.
I don't want to say if he's the best horse out there. I know he's as talented as anybody else in the 3-year-old class. But I'm not making any predictions. I just hope I have the luckiest horse this time.
Well, you know, guys, it's been a tough year personally for Chris McCarron. His mom passed away late last year. Most recently, he lost his father, Herb McCarron. In a nice gesture, owner Ernie Paragallo has decided to donate 5% of Artax's future winnings in honor of Chris's father to the Don Macbeth Fund, which aids injured rider. This is a fund that Chris started in 1987.